Well, thank you, everybody. Welcome to the Trinity uh, Zoom forum this morning, and we're going to talk about the Twin Tiers Honor Flight Program. And I'm pleased to have Patty Vincent, who is the president of the Twin Tier Honor Program here. And Patty will like to just kind of tell us what the whole program is all about.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me. On behalf of Twin Tiers Honor Flight, we excited about getting. Our hub is a large area. It covers from Cortland all the way down to Scranton now. There is no hub in northeastern Pennsylvania, so we've kind of absorbed that area. We go to Bath in the west and a little farther east than Broome County. We take some Oneonta and down people from there. So we do cover quite a big area. We're looking for World War II veterans. We're looking for Korean veterans and Vietnam veterans. We also are looking for terminally ill veterans. They get kind of first choice here. We want women as well as men. In 2 weeks, we're doing our very first all-women's trip. We've had a very difficult time getting women to go on the trip. They don't feel they deserve to go. They don't feel they were in combat or that they were just, sitting at a desk in DC somewhere. They signed their name and they signed up for this. So we want to take them. Back in the spring, we decided we were going to try a one bus trip of all women. We thought if we could get 22 women, female veterans to go, that would be a wonderful thing. Before we even got a lot of advertising out there, we had 25 signed up. We now have 48 that we're taking, and we've gone from one little bus to 2 big buses. We have several of our women who have gone before that are coming back as veterans or as guardians. And we have some younger guardians that are also veterans on this trip. So we're real excited about it. Each trip is different, but each one is very special in its own way. I'm sure Gary can attest to the fact that he had a very special trip. We've had a couple of conversations about that. And that is our goal, is to make each trip a special trip. So we're looking for people to go. We usually have 2 trips, one in the spring, one in the fall. And we're looking forward to next year's trips. And for those of you who aren't veterans, who feel that they can go as a guardian for somebody, we'd love to have you join us. We tell our veterans or our guardians that this trip is all about the veterans, which it is. Monday is our guardian day. That's the day that you kind of let down and you think about what all happened. And, what a wonderful day it was. And if anyone's interested, on our website, twintiershonorflight.org, are the applications for veterans and guardians. Our veterans deserve so much better than they got when they came home, and we can show them how we feel. A couple of ways people can do is come out to our welcome home, which will be Sunday evening, the November 6th. It'll be over on Robinson Street at the American Legion Post, 1645. We're usually home around 7:30, somewhere around that time. But if you follow on Facebook during the day, they kind of update our timeline. We'd love to have you come to a welcome home. I don't know about Gary, but he probably thinks that that was one of the nicer parts of it. A well-deserved welcome home for our veterans. This last trip, we had a guy on one of the buses who had trouble getting off the bus. He was so overcome with all the people that were there that he just, he didn't, he said, I can't get off. I can't get off. And so, you know, they talked to him, and, you know, other people went in front of him, and he finally said, okay, he was ready to do it. So coming out to our welcome home is one thing. Another thing is on our way home, we do mail call for each of our veterans. Mail call was a big thing for veterans while they were serving. Some of them tell us they never got any mail while they were overseas. You know, back Vietnam even, they didn't have cell phones. They didn't have computers. They couldn't communicate in that way. And they waited for a mail call. So we give each of our veterans a bag of mail. A lot of it is written by, you know, different groups, and it's kind of a generic, thank you, welcome home. We have pictures that are colored by kids. You know, a lot of high school groups, you know, grade school groups do stuff to put in their bags. And we always try to get some family to write us, you know, some notes to stick in there so that they can get some personal stuff. But if you want to do something like that, get a hold of Gary or get a hold of Twin Tiers Honor Flight, and we'll make an arrangement to get it before we go on our trip and stuff it in their bags so that they can have mail call. Again, thank you for inviting me here. I got to say, it was a lot of fun, our last trip. Gary was, you know, and I think can attest to the fact that we all had a good time. But it was a very meaningful time, and it was a very emotional time for some of them, a lot of closure for some of them. Our Vietnam veterans, I think, really were honored with some special stuff. So if any of you have any questions for me.
Just a comment. You may know that Trinity contributed a lot of shoes.
Oh, yeah.
Ed Whalen is my neighbor.
Uh-huh.
And when he would see me drive in his driveway rather than mine, he'd go, oh, no.
Yeah.
But the program helped us clean out our closet for shoes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're still doing that. We have two ladies who are absolutely amazing collecting shoes, old shoes. And, you know, $6,000 a year, $8,000 a year from used shoes. Who would have thought? Adds to it.
We had a box out in one of the areas, and we took it down because we figure everybody's donated all the shoes.
So we really appreciate everybody's donations that way also.
I have a quick question. And I'm thinking of somebody in this room who sends out the most beautiful Christmas newsletter. And I was wondering, do you think that some of the service people would enjoy hearing something like that in like a Christmas newsletter from different people? Or
we try to keep in touch with our veterans we do birthday cards for them all. We have a lady who does a birthday card to them each year.
These are people that are over.
Oh, overseas?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they would.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
It's so new.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes.
I'd love to give a shout out to my daughter, our daughter-in-law, who has now for a number of years. In fact, I'll before I go, I'll get an email because it's Janine's. I don't know the name, but people will write to her and say, I have a veteran who's turning anything 70, 80, 90. And her whole, Janine's team, I guess it's called. And they send pictures. They have gotten 500, 600, and 700 letters. But it's just been sent.
I've seen that.
Yeah. And that if you see the Janines, it's our daughter-in-law.
Oh,
yeah.
Very good.
And whenever she does, she had become known as the national anthem girl because she sang the national anthem in all 50 states in time for the ceremony down in Baltimore at help me. Where was it written? Who wrote the national anthem? And it was
Francis Scott Key.
Yes, but what's the name of the? Yeah, the name of the McHenry.
Fort McHenry.
Fort McHenry. Thank you. And that's how it started. So whenever she went to the 50 states and sang, she had cards out on the table, and kids came in, and just as you say, so it's wonderful. Yeah.
An interesting thing I learned on this trip was the line in the Star Spangled Banner that says that our flag was still there.
Mm-hmm.
It was bodies in their home.
Oh.
I think Gary's on the same bus that I was. We pick up tour guides in DC, and we have become very good friends with a husband and wife team, Rosemary and Bill Bozo. Honest to God, that's their name. She's a retired school teacher. He's retired Army. They are full of so much information, and every trip I learned something more, but it's a real joy to listen to some of the trivia, some of the stuff that you don't usually hear, don't read in the book, that type of thing. So I'm sure you picked up a few things here. Rosemary.
A lot of information.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Patty. Patty, you're welcome to stay as long as you want.
Okay.
She has to put in an appearance at the next mission 14, which is the all women's, which is going on now.
We'll start in a few minutes.
In a few minutes. So
I have a few minutes to.
Okay, great. Okay, well, just to give you a little bit of background on me, I graduated high school in 1968 in Tucson, Arizona. And I started at the University of Arizona. I had a few challenges going through my studies there, and to lighten my load, I elected to drop one of the classes, which they immediately pulled my student deferment, and coincidentally, they had the first draft in the military since World War II. It was a lottery. I won. I won. I met a guy on the trip who had a lower number than me. I had either 11 or 12, and he had number 3. So it didn't matter. We both got the same prize. And I was a little concerned about going into the military. I didn't consider myself being a military person. That wasn't the path that I was going to choose. And when I went to report to the Army, they determined that I would best be suited as a medic in the Army. Well, in 1969, a medic in the Army had really one place to go. And quite frankly, I was scared to death. So I enlisted in the Navy instead. And a lot of people did that. I didn't have a choice. The choice was go in the military, go to jail, or leave the country. Those were the choices. And I figured going into the military was probably the best choice that I could take. And so I did. Got through boot camp in San Diego and school. And then they ask you where you want to go. And I said, oh, Hawaii or London would be fine. So they sent me to the Panama Canal Zone, which technically was not overseas duty because the United States owned the Panama Canal Zone at the time. So I was not overseas at all. But, I had enjoyed being in the Navy. I felt great serving my country. But it was a real letdown when, all the protests were going on. It was a very unpopular war. there were things on the news of how veterans were being treated coming home. And it was very hurtful. In fact, they said, I got discharged in Charleston, South Carolina, and said, don't wear your uniform home. That's an order. So we had to go home in civilian clothes. And then I got home. My family, of course, was happy that I was home. And I found out who my true friends were that were happy to see me home. Some resented the fact that I was in the military, and it just wasn't talked about. So I didn't talk about it either. And then after many years and getting married and having a family and hearing about honor flights, and my wife nagged and hounded, I mean, suggested and encouraged me
Yes, I will do.
to go on the honor flight. And I thought, well, you know, I'm going to do it, and I'll take my son with me. So we signed up, met Patty and everybody with the Twin Tiers honor flight. And here's how the last 2 days went, or the last year. So we met at SUNY Broome up on Front Street at 5:30 in the morning. Here we are. It's dark outside, but it's beautiful weather. We had beautiful weather the whole time. Some of my slides, because I'm not too good at this, some of them are a little out of order here, but I think you'll still get the whole idea if I can figure out which way to go to start. Okay, I got that figured out. So SUNY Broome had a beautiful breakfast for us there. You can see there's our cooks. So we got started off that way. And then we all got registered. And if you look on this side over here, you can see there are actually these bags. And they had red shirts, short sleeve and long sleeve for the veterans, blue shirts for the guardians. And a nice, beautiful fleece throw that was in there too, if you got cold on the bus, but it was warm and we were all fine. And there were some other things in there too. And then here we are at breakfast. I'm kind of there, and there's my son, and I'm sitting with Bob Gardner, who was the mission commander for breakfast. Then we get started off, and they had a Broome County Sheriff's Department, since we were right by the jail up there, and they had some motorcycles, and they let us out on our way on our journey. There were two buses. There was a green bus and a white bus. And if you were on the green bus, you had a lanyard that was green. If you were on the white bus, you had a lanyard that was white. But here it has my name, the service that I was in, and mine says Navy Vietnam veteran. On the back were important contact information, and plus the schedule for both days. And you just flip the schedule around. So you kind of had an idea where you were going and what you were doing. The funny part of that was every time the bus stopped, we had to get off the bus. We got to get back on the bus. Well, there's somebody there checking your name off. They don't want to lose anybody. So if they don't get your name checked off, then there's roll call. Make sure everybody's there. And then it's like, everybody hold up your lanyard. If you got a green lanyard, you're okay. If you got a white lanyard, you're on the wrong bus. Typical military. And then we stopped at, there's more of the trip. We stopped at the Pennsylvania Welcome Center, and those are our motorcycle escorts there. And there's Macy Cosgrove and Luke. They are the crew from WBNG. They videoed like hours and hours and hours of everything. And maybe some of you saw it. It was televised on the 6 o'clock evening news, little pieces here and there, and some interviews. And then there's our police escort there. And there was a gentleman waiting there at the Welcome Center who was 101 years old, World War II veteran, and he had been on a flight before. And I'll tell you maybe a little bit more about him as I go through here too. He was there to wave goodbye to us. Each bus had 20 wheelchairs on it. And you were encouraged that if you don't be embarrassed, if you need a wheelchair, get a wheelchair, because it's a lot of walking and standing. And when the bus stopped, the wheelchair crew and the press crew got off first, and then everybody else got off after that. So here's where I'm a little bit out of sync here. Our first stop was the Lincoln Memorial, and the Lincoln Memorial's here. Vietnam's on one side, the wall, and the Korea Memorial's on the other side. So here's the Korea Memorial is very, to me, it was really kind of eerie and spooky because they're walking through the grass like that, and they're they're slightly oversized life statues, but they're very grim-faced and can imagine what it was like. There's me and my guardian, which is my son, Ryan. So that was a warm day, so we had our short sleeve shirts on that day. And then this is another part of the Korea memorial. All of those names are etched in stone. It's about this high, and it curves all the way around. There are over 36,000 names on this. And once you see the video, you don't realize how far around it really goes. It's like the Vietnam Wall. It stretches on for a long way. It really does. Here's another close-up of one of those Korea statues. You know, that I was fascinated by this. And I had heard somebody said if you went when it's like dusk or something like that, they said then it really gets to you how scary it was. And here's I think this is a great photo because this is like a self-portrait here of me and my son in the Vietnam Wall. And a lot of people go up and touch the wall and do this. Very powerful. There was another bus or another tour there, another honor flight there, and they were from Dayton, Ohio. So you can see one of the guys, and he had a blue shirt on, and then his guardian had like a gray shirt. And if you can't read this, it says, if you can read this, thank a teacher. If you can read this in English, thank a veteran. I thought that was funny. And there's the Washington Monument. If you look kind of halfway up, it's hard to tell there, but they're different colors. And the reason for that is that monument, and that's the only monument in DC, all the rest are memorials. About halfway up, the stone changes color. And it's because it was built during the Civil War and they had to stop. They couldn't continue building. And by the time they were able to get back to it, the quarry where they got the stones had kind of changed colors. So 2 different colors on there. And the photographers were always capturing us when we weren't looking. And probably good, for me, that's probably good that way. But he caught me and my son. We were just sitting there looking at, reflecting on what we had just seen at the Lincoln Memorial and the Vietnam Wall and the Korea Memorial. And then there's another, it's like the Grand Canyon. You really can't take a picture of the whole thing. You know, you really can't. You got to be there in person to see it. But over 58,000 names on that wall. And the average age was 22 and a half years old when they died.
Mary, do I remember there's a book that if you know someone that died, you can go to the book and then it gives you the panel?
Yeah, there's websites. There's all kinds of ways to get to that. And plus they have park rangers there that can find it for you real quickly. And you have a piece of paper and like a charcoal stick so you can put it up there and you can rub the name so you have a lasting impression of who's on there. And unfortunately, probably everybody here knows someone who has a name on there. And after that, we went to Arlington, which is just an awe-inspiring site of all of the perfectly aligned gravestones. And I'll tell you, there wasn't a blade of grass out of there. I don't know when they find time to take care of it, but it's a square mile, Patty, Arlington?
A couple of square miles.
Yeah, it's a huge area.
And they're increasing it.
They are increasing it. I know that I had looked into one time about actually being buried at Arlington, and to be interred in the ground at Arlington, you have to be an active soldier when you're killed, or achieve a certain rank, or Medal of Honor, or I think a Silver Star recipient. Other than that, you can be, and they have some columbariums that they're adding there. You can be there, but certain criteria to be buried in the ground at Arlington. And here's our group photo. I'm all the way on this side over there, standing on the end, and we're giving our best salute how we remembered to do it. Something that you really don't forget. And then the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. We were there, and buses aren't allowed up there. They have like a trolley system, like you go to at different venues. But our buses were allowed to drive all the way up to the top, and we parked up there. And we got to see the changing of the guard, and they don't talk to one another. They don't salute one another, but they have their way of communicating. And as somebody is walking along, marching, you know, guarding the tomb, if they scuff their shoe like that, they're saluting veterans that they see. That's how they do it, because they can't say anything and they can't look at you. And here is the one guy, and he's talking now. He's giving our veterans, our guys on our bus, instructions on how to lay the wreath. So he's telling them what to do. And here they have laid the wreath, and we all saluted and took a picture. There he is, resuming his duties. And the way they march, it's almost like they're floating. I couldn't do it. And they all look alike. They're all the same size. I think they all wear the same size uniform, something. It's a real honor to be chosen for that duty. And I believe they live right there on site when they're active. Was it 24 hours or something like that? And they're there. And it's rain or shine or snow or whatever.
Gary,
yes.
How long is their shift?
I'm not sure. Do you remember how long it is?
They usually do like half hour to an hour, depending on the time of year and the weather. And then they go back in to underneath the amphitheater where they have like rooms, apartments, that type of thing. And then another group will come out, and then they may be, you know, the one soldier. Interestingly enough, they have a little hut thing, excuse me, that they can stand in between their trips back and forth. So they have some protection from the weather, but you know, rainy days, snowy days, hurricanes come through. The president had given a reprieve and told them they didn't have to go out during when a hurricane came through a few years ago. And they said, no, that was their job. They were doing it. So they're out there every day.
They're dedicated people. They really are. Just like everybody on the trip just seemed to really be dedicated to what they were doing. And then this was, if you remember Audie Murphy, he was in a lot of movies. He was a cowboy and a soldier. He's the most decorated soldier from World War II. And he's buried there right near the road. So his grave's in a really prominent spot there. It's just another shot of it. It was such a beautiful time because we were at, I would say, probably the peak season of fall and all the leaf colors and all that. So it made it even prettier. And again, there's no litter. there's no weeds. There's everything is done nicely. And this was after we left Arlington, we were in the bus and we drove, and you can drive around the Iwo Jima Memorial. And it's so odd because the bus driver or tour guide said, if you watch the flag as you're driving around, it raises straight up. I don't know how they did it that way, but you go, son of a gun, because it's in one spot. It's not like hydraulically lifted, just the way you go around it. The flag raises. That's a nice exposure there with the background. So then we go to the Crowne Plaza Hotel, and that's where we spent the night. It was right in the downtown area, and nice hotel. Got refreshed a little bit. These are a little bit out of order, but here's the table that I was sitting at. You can see that there's a soldier in uniform there. That's his father, and his son was there waiting in D.C. to be his guardian. So one of the staff was his guardian on the way there and on the way back. But during the whole time there, his son was there. And then he was on duty that day. And I forgot to mention that Macy Cosgrove, our WB&G person, her grandfather was a veteran on the trip. So she was there with her grandparents. The grandmother was the guardian. And I thought that was very cool. And here, this is Shelley Waite. And she's a graduate of the Eastman School of Music. She's a voice teacher. She sang the Star Spangled Banner in a very, very operatic voice solo. It was one of the best I've ever heard. I mean, she just did a great job. And then here's our dignitaries. You can see Patty sitting at the table with them. And her husband, this gentleman here, that's A. Philip Waite. And let me just read a little something about him. Philip Waite is Chief of Strategic Planning and Analysis for the United States of America Vietnam War commemoration. In this position, he leads the development and implementation of dynamic strategies, ensuring securing the commemoration success. In his prior position with that's a hard word to say, commemoration, he led its strategic engagement efforts, which resulted in 74,000 media mentions with an advertising value equivalency of $128 million, as well as nearly 800,000 social media engagements in just 23 months. Barack Obama was president when he decided that it was the recognition of Vietnam veterans was past due. I mean, it was a very painful experience for everybody, the whole country, and he decided to do something about it. So, A. Philip Waite was a colonel in the Air Force, and he's also a graduate of Eastman School of Music. So, he's a very, very dynamic speaker.
He was born and raised in Watkins Glen.
That's right.
So we had some guys from Watkins Glen area in Elmira. And interestingly enough, Monday morning, I started getting messages from this Sylvia, who I had no idea who it was. Come to find out, it was his mother had seen pictures of him on our Facebook page, and she contacted me and she said, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize he was going to be doing that. I'm, so proud of him." And anyways, we've struck up quite a friendship with this Sylvia. She's a lovely lady, and she's a big supporter of Twin Tiers Honor Flight.
But we were quite honored to have him there, and we didn't really have any expectations. We figured we'd have dinner, and then maybe we'd hear from the Twin Tiers Honor people again, talking about what we had done and what we're going to do the next day. We had no idea that Colonel Waite was going to speak to us, and he told the unvarnished truth of the whole Vietnam experience. He didn't sugarcoat anything, and he felt all the pain that we had. It was mostly Vietnam era veterans. There were a few Korea, but it was mostly Vietnam era veterans, and he just gave a spellbinding speech that just really grabbed all of us, right? Every one of us.
But you're not Vietnam era veterans.
We are Vietnam veterans, yes. Mm-hmm. So anyhow, afterwards, we didn't expect this either. He called us up each by name and looked us right in the eye. Warm handshake. It's hard to say. Thank you for your service to your country. Welcome home. And it was very personalized. And then he put this pin on our shirt. It felt like getting a medal or something. In fact, this is the pin right here. It says Vietnam veteran. It's got an eagle to represent our country. It's got 6 stars that represented the countries that were our allies, and then a blue background. And I mean, I could pass this around if you wanted to take a closer look at it. You don't have to put money in it or anything. It's a nice pin. It's a very nice pin. Every single veteran, every one of them. So there were, I think, 42 or 43 of us. Every single one got the honest and sincere look straight in the eye, the firm handshake, and thank you for your service. Brother, thank you for your service. Gary, or thank you for your service. It was a little different every time. It wasn't a canned speech, and it wasn't like, well, there's a box of these things, take one on your way out. It was really awe-inspiring.
And we also honored our guardians who were Vietnam veterans. They all got one as well.
So there I am getting it pinned on me, and you can see the camera. WBNG was recording that. And I'll tell you, and I told him how great it felt. I said, this really feels great. Thank you so much. And if there are people in wheelchairs that were having a little trouble, he went to them. He didn't make them walk up or wheel themselves up. He went to them. And then that was the end of the day. We all went to the bar after that and had a beer. Not everybody, but I did. And then we went to the World War II Memorial the next day. And it's so huge. It's one of those things that you really can't capture on film. But these pictures here I harvested from the Lewis Photography website. So they do a pretty good job of getting everybody here. It's a big circle, and it's got Pacific on one side and Atlantic on the other side. And then there's plaques and commemorations all around it. If you're of a certain age, you remember this little thing here. Kilroy was here. And that's etched into the backside of one of the things. In fact, they were saying that was such a popular thing that it became worldwide. And American soldiers would go to a place during World War II, and Kilroy was already there. Somebody else had put it there and beat him to it. And that just shows where the little, I guess you call it graffiti is. There's some more of the World War II memorial. And there's Macy interviewing a Korean veteran. On the back of his hat, it said Korean War 1950 to 1953, which that's when he was there. I was born in 1950. So he was fighting in Korea, and he wore his uniform, and it still fit him perfectly. And he looked like he was ready to go on active duty. And he gave a great interview. I don't know if any of us saw it on the WBNG, but he gave a great interview. And then they captured me and my son, just kind of looking there. And then that's our tour bus driver there. She saw us and she says, well, let me take a picture. And then while she's taking our picture, our photographer's taking a picture of her taking a picture. Didn't know where they came up. And here's all the Navy guys on the bus. And in the back is the lone soldier there. And they have a little museum there. I'm over here a second. That's the monument there, the lone sailor. And then here's the photographer again, getting the picture of my son taking a picture of me. And the water in the background is there's two bodies of water there, and they flow down some steps. And the water isn't smooth on the top. It's kind of choppy, almost like it's the ocean. And supposedly that water is the water from the seven seas. And somehow they use that when they christen a ship. They take some of that water. I thought that was pretty interesting. And this is a great shot. I didn't think anybody was going to get a picture of the Air Force Memorial because it's so amazingly huge. You stand at the bottom, and by the time you look up, you need your guardian there to keep you from falling over because it kind of makes you dizzy. If they look like they're made out of aluminum, or they're very clean, very shiny, and it represents jets flying off, and those are the contrails. And then from there, you look down at the Pentagon, and if you look at this one section over here, it's a little bit lighter in color than the rest of the building. Well, that's where the plane hit on 9/11. And the tour guide was saying that, interestingly enough, that one part of the Pentagon has some steel reinforcement in it that's not all sections of the Pentagon. So they hit they hit the Pentagon, but they hit the worst part that they could hit, because if they'd hit anywhere else, the plane might have gone all the way through the Pentagon, come out the other side. But that part of the building stopped it. And then one of our favorites, we have Mission Barbecue Mobile Command Unit. And they delivered pulled pork and pulled chicken barbecue sandwiches for us. It was wonderful. And the girl who set it all up for us and everything afterwards, she'd loaded everything in the truck and she's standing there, and we're on the bus now watching her and go, well, you know, we're watching her load. Should we go help her? No, she's getting it all done. And she's standing there till we pulled away and she waved at us. That was a nice touch. Okay, so on our way home now, Katie, who was the bus commander's daughter, was so much fun. She must have been about 15 years old or something like that. But she was one that was giving us bottles of water, sodas, whatever we wanted, snacks, fruit, up and down, collecting garbage, doing all that kind of stuff. And then she comes by, we're on our way back, and she's handing out tissues along the way. Tissues? What do we need tissues for? That's when they had mail call. And it was neat. I had a letter from my wife. I had a letter from my children. I had a letter from my grandchildren. I had all these random letters and pictures colored by children and other things like that. And you know, it was just a nice touch. And then we pulled into the New York Welcome Center, and they're waiting for us. It was about 7 o'clock at night. Now they're waiting for us was, I think, 3 or 4 sheriff's cars with all the lights flashing. And there must have been 30 or 40 motorcycles that night. They're all decked out. They're all lit up. And we caravan from from the Welcome Center up to SUNY Boone, where we had departed from. And on the last mile or two, they blasted that Lee Greenwood song, "Proud to Be an American." Oh, I needed my tissues there. It was cool. And then the motorcycles, they strategically blocked off where we were coming off the highway on the exit ramp so we could get on Front Street. And then they blocked off the 2 new roundabouts there. So we just cruised on through. And then we had to go into the first entrance into SUNY Broome. There's so many motorcycles. If we'd taken the second turn, which is where we were located, they wouldn't have all gotten off the highway. It was such a long line of motorcycle. And then we get there, and it was cool because I was kind of near the front and I could look out the window and I could see all of this. It felt like we were in a parade or something. It was really great. And then the people waving flags, holding signs, and they weren't protesting. They were being nice. They were welcoming us home. Jason Gardner, the county executive, was there. I don't know, 200 people maybe there. There was a lot of people there. There's a lot of people. And if I can be there for the Welcome the Women home, I certainly will be. And then as you got off the bus, they read your name tag and said your name, veteran, and they said, "Welcome home again." So there I am getting off the bus, Patty right there. There's me and my son. And they gave us a photo of this group photo that I had before. Here's a photo that had been taken yesterday. And then my ride home. So that was my trip. That was my trip to the honor flight. I would encourage anybody, you know, don't be like me. If somebody invites you to go, don't hesitate. Go, do it. You won't forget it. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. I don't think my son will ever forget it either. So, and that's my cat. Yes.
Your picture of the Iwo Jima flag going up. I don't know if anybody knows this, but that flag went up for that on a very small flagpole. And one of the generals there said that's no good. They came down off Suribachi and they came to Dave Patterson's LST. And they said, "We need a flagpole. Do you have a pipe that we can have?" So Dave Patterson's LST gave it to the guys, they went up, they took the flag down, put it on the bigger flagpole and put it up.
I had heard that they had done it twice, but I didn't know the whole story. So thank you.
So it was, Dave Patterson was very involved in that.
Yeah. Wow.
Dave Patterson.
Yeah.
Does everybody know? I mean, they were a family here at the church. His wife is still alive down in Florida.
Yeah.
He taught Sunday school here.
You supervised our building for a while.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
I was just going to say, one thing you mentioned brought back memories of those of us who were in college at the time of the lottery. There were parties. We had beer and pizza waiting for the numbers to be pulled. And that was a scary moment because even if you were in college at the time, there were rules about how you could still be drafted if you weren't at a certain stage.
Right. I had dropped a class and it wasn't enough to be considered a full load, but I was going to night school trying to make that up, but they still changed my draft classification to 1A. And I actually heard the lottery in my car on my way to class. I heard my number called and I went, well, I said a word that I won't say here. And I didn't go to class that night. I figured it was pointless. You know, what's the use? I got it. I'm going. And it was later that I got my draft notice. Yes.
There's, in my Smithsonian magazine, they're featuring the statues of the soldiers. And I don't know which not the war, but each section. And they've just been putting those up. And I don't know if the ones that you saw there, they were, you know.
We're in the ponchos and all that?
No, where you had the men just standing, looking like they were fighting.
Oh, okay. I think that was the Korea memorial. Yeah, that was the Korea memorial.
They've just been putting those up.
They just did a huge overhaul of Korea, enlarged it, and those soldiers that are life size are actual soldiers.
Right.
We were there one day a couple of years ago, and one of the guys that was one of those soldiers was there. And I mean, talk about being lifelike. But at nighttime, at dusk, they look like they're moving. They used to have more plants in between them. So if it was a breezy day or if it was raining and that was moving, it was very eerie. It really was. And I stood there with a Korean veteran one time, and he said, it's like being there, standing amongst, you know, the guys I was walking through those fields with. And so the designer captured that. And there's also a wall, and Gary didn't have a picture of it, at Korea, which has these etchings in it that are all real soldiers. And, you know, people will come along and say, hey, I know that person, or that's, you know, that was me. But that is a very, very neat kind of thing to look at, reflect back at. So
you could spend the whole day at any one of those memorials and still not see, you know, everything that was there. It was great. It was a wonderful time. Anybody else have a question?
How did they get the funding to do this?
we raise money. You know, we have fundraisers, we have, you know, our shoe collections, we have, there are some groups that will, you know, donate money to us. We have We have a grant writer now that is working with us to, invoice some grants.
Tier Honor Flights has to raise its own money.
Twin Tiers Honor Flight raises their own money. Yep.
These shirts were donated by Cops for a Cause, as well as some of the other things that we got also. And there's no charge for the veteran on this trip, but the Guardians, they paid $400 for their portion of the trip. So that covered some of the bus and hotel charges and food and all that. But the veterans, it was zero cost to a veteran.
Are the wheelchairs theirs? I mean, they
yes,
just accumulated that.
Yeah, we several years ago we did a fundraiser for that. But yeah, this community used to have a lot of big industry, and when Honor Flight first started, that's where some of the funding came from. I have an uncle who lives in California, and so we were looking to get him on an Honor Flight. Honor Flight Los Angeles, their sponsors are Columbia Studios, Country Music Association, so they can afford to fly them out and spend 3 days there. So, we don't have that,
but the buses sound like more fun to me.
Well, the Ohio guys, I was talking to some of the people from Ohio, the blue shirts, and and I saw that they were on a bus, and I said, "Did you take a bus all the way from Ohio?" "Oh no, we flew. We were at the airport at 3:00 in the morning to fly into DC, and then they got on the buses, and then they were leaving that night. So they didn't have quite the experience that we did. They didn't have the time to spend at the different memorials, and they didn't have a dinner and a banquet, and they didn't have Colonel Philip Waite telling them, everything that he said to us. So I think if I would ever go again, I would do a bus trip without a doubt.
I think all of our board members have come to the conclusion that a bus trip is the way to go. And there are a lot of veterans that don't want to fly. And, I understand that. And we have hubs will contact us like Syracuse, Rochester, that will say, we have a veteran who doesn't want to fly. If we can get him down to you, can you take him on a bus trip? And we'll do that. Sometimes we come across a veteran who said, "No, I don't want a bus trip. I want to fly. I'll wait till you fly again." We flew last fall, and I'll tell you something, the work that we had to put into that flight, and of course it was just coming out of COVID, and everything you had to do for TSA, for the airlines, it was a lot of work. We don't have that part of it for a bus trip. So for us, it makes our job a lot easier. We enjoy it. We get to spend more time with the veterans. We get to know them better. And I think they get to have more time with each other. And Gary will probably tell you this too, that going to DC and looking at everything is one thing. Going to DC with a bunch of your brothers is totally.
It was a 5.5-hour bus trip, and Katie kept pushing water and hydration on us, which meant that the bus driver had to keep stopping along the way. But the only person I knew on that bus was my son, and I felt like I had a whole bunch of new friends afterwards, because it was so easy to just be standing next to somebody and start up a conversation, because you had that one thing in common, that it was a brotherhood. It really was. So
did buses help you price-wise?
We have been using Schaefer buses, and they have been very, generous with us. They've been very accommodating for us. And, they've been wonderful. And we've had the same two bus drivers for like the last 3 or 4 trips. And these 2 guys are amazing. Number one, their driving ability is amazing, but they're just nice guys and they help us out. I mean, it's not above them to go grab a wheelchair and push it if they're walking around. It's not above them to help somebody if they need it. They're just, we've been very blessed by these guys from Schaefer.
We're kind of running over our time allotment here. So
Thank you. And
is there a way that you can find a list of all of the people that served? Because I wrote pen pal letters to a Vietnam soldier who was a medic. And I would like to know if he made it out all right, or
I would say probably your best bet is to look on like one of those websites that lists the names on the wall and look for it that way first, and see if you can find it on the wall. If it's not on the wall, then you know, if you knew what branch they were in, you might be able to track it that way. Thank you, Karen.
thank you, Penny. Thank you for coming.
I gotta make it.
Okay.
A fair.
Okay.